having me be a part of this meaningful occasion, meaningful work, acts of resistance. Sometimes just our presence being in the room can be an act of resistance. Just the tone of my voice when I take control of someone trying to put me back and put me down is an act of resistance. And I will stand my ground that I stood my ground. I'm 57 years old, and I'm very proud to be here tonight as a way of just honoring the community. This community embraced me a long time ago. My name is Myra Lewis. I am the founder and owner of My Rock Productions, LLC. Why is it called My Rock, MYROC? That was my graffiti tag. I used to bob trains at this 178th Street.
And you kind.
Underground. So I'm known as the Princess of Perseverance. From the place I earned in the Red Arrow Ballroom from 1986 to 1990, I worked for my stores, I founded my house, I innovated in fashion, and I connected communities. I persevered through trauma and tragedy to transform my own life, and then the lives of other people by becoming the most skilled physician I could be, and treat each patient with intense focus and advocacy. I have become a mother 3 times over, and I've parented tirelessly for 20 years. I've been bringing big ideas to life since my early teenage years, and I've broken every rule in doing so. 5 years ago, I embarked on a journey to write, produce, and direct an award-winning documentary, the first ballroom documentary in decades. What was my goal? Yes, it was to explain this missing link in how ballroom came to the attention of popular culture. But it was also to reveal an underlying message of outsiders who needed and found belonging together. And I was one of those outsiders. After establishing myself as a competitor in the community, I got the blessing of the elders and people like Avis and Pepper and Mother Angie to have a ball downtown. First came the ball at the nightclub, The World. That's where I did the door. That was my second side hustle. The one and only Frankie Knuckles was the DJ for our ball. How amazing. Talk about connecting communities. This was the first ball that Jose Extravaganza says he wiped himself out voguing for the only LL Cool J. Bridging gaps. LL Cool J was there. And that event made a full-page story by Donald Suggs in the Village Voice called Venus Envy. And it had Carmen on the front cover. And it describes me, the organizer and MC, as wearing a prom dress befitting of a drag queen. Fabulous. In that same article, that same issue of the Village Voice is an article called Boys to Vogue. And it features Caesar Valentino in there, as well as the wonderful Derek LaBeija. At our second ball downtown in September 1988, to commemorate the anniversary of the closing of Paradise Garage, people signed up for weeks in advance for novel categories. A panel of judges representing fashion, music, and photography held the stage, where the only Willie Ninja, House of Field then, as judge, sat next to Malcolm McLaren and Andre Leontelli, who was the editor of Vogue. Most everyone in the room, there were about 1,000, had never seen voguing or fashion competition before. Never. This was a brand new concept. No one had seen it. So I had the arduous task of explaining this to people. It was from that meeting between Willie and Malcolm McLaren that Deep in Vogue was born. Connecting communities and ideas. That's what happens when we work together. When we look for what divides us, we can't do that. But when we look for what pulls us together, that's what happens. My motivation to share the beauty of belonging in the art of defiant fashion took hold. This was before Paris is Burning, make no mistake, before Madonna, and the Love Ball. So yes, I am known as Princess Myra for how I found myself. The ball kids called me out. They drew me in, and then I jumped on the challenge to walk and win. I'm also known as, and earned the degrees and licenses over 15 years, as Dr. Myra, for what I find and do professionally to give of myself to others. When I speak of mission, I don't mean some cute little thing you write in your journal and never revisit. I mean a calling so deep in my gut, it demands me to lean into it. Because in life, our convictions are only as strong as the adversity that we're willing to face. Bravery, I discovered, isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to be paralyzed by that fear. So in ballroom, I followed my heart. And I learned from the harsh correction and the reading of the elders they read me. And I needed the embrace of the community. That validation healed wounds left by the rejection of my own family and told me I belonged. As someone who grew up in a home with physical abuse, violence, and terminal illness, I witnessed and felt trauma and tragedy on a daily basis. This is why I believe in the mission of Ballroom We Care, to be a safe place to land and actually handle mental health issues through dedicated professionals before it's too late. I saw lives waste away when I grew up, just trying to survive in my home. When I left this home with Queen at 17, I found my dance and fashion family at the Paradise Garage. I was still that determined teenager, but I was curious, and I needed to escape myself. I had wounds I had not dealt with. So I escaped through habits and behaviors that could have killed me at a time when all our friends were dropping dead around us. So yeah. The harsh reality of that escapist behavior and working to survive in the 80s, New York City on my own, I needed a wake-up call. And it came one day in the form of the death of my older brother. He called me out just days before his death. What are you doing? What are you doing with your gift of life? Convicted by this question, I realized it was a turning point for me. I walked away that very night from it all, and I embarked on a hard, long journey of facing and remaking myself, brick by brick, stone by stone, step by step, again. So yes, the mission of Ballroom We Care resonates with me, that substance use is eliminated from the ballroom community. I did not have access to the competent resources that are here before us. I had to seek them out amidst much stigma, like my life depended on it, and it really did. Then for 15 years, I worked to create, educate, and build a life equipped to give to others in a meaningful way. And I honored my legacy by doing so with what? The bravery of a ballroom child, of course. Each time bravery demanded I risk my reputation, relationships, and comfort. Yet each time I emerged clearer in my purpose, more anchored to my beliefs. And then, 25 years later from leaving the scene, I felt the pull to create this film. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you felt a tremor of doubt inside of you, in your bones, and then you walked forward anyway? I bet every day.
How about that?
I bet every day. And I know that. The spark is the birthplace of bravery. That's where it's born. In that moment when you can't walk, but you do. And while I was not ever on a traditional timeline, it is never too late. That's the hope. I don't believe in that. People say, well, it's too late for me. Too late for what? Change doesn't respect a schedule. It respects our resolve. And resolve can awaken at any age in life. You might be convinced you missed your chance, but the moment you decide right now that your next breath will be devoted to something meaningful or clean or a sober choice or the next right thing or the next brave step or that project you've never done or that person you're holding a grudge against, that very instant becomes your launching point. Balance isn't a buzzword, it's a fragile place between excess and discipline. And making this film required balance, embracing the unknown to trust myself. And that often starts with, you guessed it, humility. Seek wise counsel. So I read everything I could. I built community with other people, editors, sound engineers, ballroom community people, and I found out again, it depends upon me being brave enough to walk in and tell a unifying story. When I embarked on my last documentary, I wasn't just telling other people's stories, I was excavating my own. See, this is the thing, every single frame, every moment was raw vulnerability for my subjects. That was a mirror for me. I needed this film to converge all the parts of me into one place. I confronted my own sense of belonging when I looked at that archival footage. What was that teenager, that 20-year-old in that stage hollering about? What was she doing? What did she need? Where did I truly call home? Interviewing the artist who rose from the ashes, I faced my own creative doubts. Do I deserve to create? Through editing suites that felt like confessionals, I found my identity, not in the titles that I carry, filmmaker, doctor, writer, no, but in the questions I keep asking. Who am I, if not a voice for change? Who am I, if I'm not a bridge between the unheard and the heard? So with each interview, each cut, each collaboration, each licensing deal, of which there were many, Caesar can attest, the documentary shaped me. It wove my doubts into courage. It turned my beliefs into invitations for others to see themselves, and for me to claim my place in community. So, the past can be a burden or a gift. And when I look back, I see moments that first drove me to create. A childhood of some beauty, dance, music, and a family wrapped in turmoil and distrust. A high school time when I was more than an outsider. Finding my community in the garage, ballroom, and the House of Field kids gave me life. And then I almost lost myself to it all. So those moments of honest transition and change, those sparks were my declaration. Art, whether it's film, medicine, parenting, bridging communities, or cheering my friends on by showing up for their art, that's my lifeblood. And when you share your spark, even the small ones, it lights someone else's flame. I've watched strangers move by a single piece of work of mine, pick up their own brushes and pens or their cameras. That to me is the highest calling of bravery, to show your own story so vividly that it emboldens another to begin theirs. So, bravery, belief, the courage to change. These are not lofty ideals, people, reserved for heroes. They are the choices we make in our everyday lives. When you choose to speak your truth, when you dare to pause and seek wise counsel, there's always somebody smarter than me or you. Seek wise counsel. When you embrace your past with the biggest hug as fuel for future creation, just like you are, today I challenge you. Identify one belief you've been too afraid to defend. Stand up for it. Decide on one habit you've been postponing. Start today, no excuses. And reach out to a mentor, a friend, or a community member and ask for their wisdom. If you take these steps and countless others, you'll still feel the tremor of possibility in your bones. That's the point where a single choice becomes a movement. And remember, it's never too late to step out in bravery.
Yes.